Hello, Sins of a Solar Empire 2 will be released in the Steam version on August 15th, 2024. A mix of real-time strategy and 4X strategy in a science fiction world. The first part still has a huge fan base among fans to this day. There is already an epic version of the second part on that sales platform. Now it's coming to Steam. The game has been expanded a bit and is now also available for people who don't want to use the Epic Store themselves. As a mix of two different game genres, it's well described. Like in a 4X strategy game, you start on a map that you don't fully know. You send out scout ships to discover planets, to find loot, and to find wrecked ships drifting in space. Eventually you find both major competitors and minor factions in the game. With the major competitors, you then fight for victory here, just like in a real-time strategy game. Conversely, there is a strong military focus. The complexity, the sprawling complexity of a 4X game is somewhat lower. The game also takes place in real time, although it can be paused at any time. You can also adjust the washing speed up or down as you like. And in a real-time strategy game, the goal is to research and then build the best ships, battleships, and troops as quickly as possible. Use them to steadily push back your opponent and eventually take their possessions. The goal of this crash course video is to give you a compact overview of the game mechanics and how to play, so that you can manage your first game against opponents, maybe on an easy difficulty level, without it stressing you out in any way. And I also want to give you an overview of the game mechanics so that you can make a reasonable purchase decision on your own. Whether this is a game to your liking or not, if you want to get the game, I have a recommendation for you. My shop appeared on Games Planet with a YouTube description link directing to the product page. The game is offered at a discounted price, and that's in 2 price phases. And I also have a community discount code. If you enter it in the checkout form, you'll get a few more euros off. The whole thing is divided into 2 price phases. At first, the price drops a lot, then it only drops a little. All the information about this is below in the text description on YouTube. But I profit from the shop's margin, not from the manufacturers. Sins of a Solar Empire's Way, of course, also has a multiplayer mode, but I guess that before your possible first multiplayer match, you'll probably want to play alone against the AI first. For that, I recommend, aside from this tutorial from this crash course video, that you also check out the tutorials in the game. You don't have to play them, they really helped me a lot because they're very, very well made. Each of them has a clearly defined topic. They're short, they're concise, they're never boring at any point, and they're played on these small mini-maps that are pre-made. You get small tasks to complete. The order of these tutorials listed here isn't something you have to follow exactly. You can also jump back and forth a bit. Or you can just say, hey, I'll rely on the crash course from this writing bulla. Next to the tutorials tab, you go over to New Game. Here, as is common in 4X games, you can put together your individual challenge based on certain parameters. You can decide for yourself. How many competitors are there? What type of card is it? How difficult do I want to make it for myself? Do I maybe want to compete as a team with AI opponents? That's also possible, for example, and you can achieve victory together or accept defeat together. Sorted by card size at the top left. You don't have to go by that, but it does make sense. Behind it is a recommendation for how many players, including yourself, and for how many factions such cards are suitable. There is a selection of cards you can choose from. For starters, I would like to recommend that you take the second card from the left, a medium card, and maybe play as a team of 2 against 2 AI opponents. So with 1 AI on your side against 2 other AIs in a team match. This way you'll have an easier first game. What I like to recommend for this is the Crossfire map, because an important gameplay feature that sets Sins of a Solar Empire 2 apart from almost all other games hasn't really been fully utilized there yet. That's when the star lanes and planetary paths shift. I'll show you in a moment. This one is a bit easier to get into. At the bottom right, you click here on Setup Game, and here you are in the single-player lobby. You can set a team here, for example. Team 1 and Team 2 are pre-selected. Here, using this slider, you can manually set the difficulty levels, meaning how tough the AI fights, and manages the economy on your side. And you can also set that as well, random. That's also available elsewhere in the game. Question marks always mean I'll let myself be surprised. And you can also, and this is of course the most important thing, decide which faction you want to play with. There are 3 major factions in the game, and each has 2 sub-factions. That means, in fact, at the time of the game's release, there are 6 factions to choose from in the game, and they all play very differently. This makes the game highly replayable. The TEC, to explain briefly, is the military arm of a powerful trade alliance that has ruled this part of space for many hundreds of years. For example, during that time they also met the second faction. Down here is the Advent, a pseudo-religious civilization or cult identified as enemies, expelled from their realm. And then there are the Vasari, who at this point in the game come from the outside, invading these maps. These are the only 2 factions with which you don't start with a fixed specific homeworld, but instead have to conquer one first. You get some extra resources at the start to ensure it works. My recommendation for beginners, I think it's easiest for you, is TEC Enclave. It's very straightforward to play. The idea is to build up a lot of economic power in the usual way so you can become stronger militarily. And they're more focused on you working well economically and building up a flood of resources, so that you can slowly fight your way forward and also build good defensive structures. This means it's less about speed, surprises, humor or tricks, and more about helping you get into the game easily. That means we select them, and after we've set up the rest, we go to the bottom right and click Start Game. And that's how you start a game with a first home planet, usually right next to it, using the right mouse button. If you hold it down, you can pan the world. Right next to it, there are a few shipyards in orbit where you can produce ships, and there are already 1 or 2 initial spear ships there as well. If you use the mouse wheel, you can zoom out in small increments. You can also press Q or E. If you click on E, you'll always be in the closest possible next zoom available. If you press the Q key, you'll zoom out and see the entire map at a glance. We're playing here, as I just set it up, in a team with another faction, and their visibility and our visibility are shared. What else there is in the world, you'll just have to take a closer look at in peace. And then you see these star paths here, which connect the starting planet with unknown worlds. That means there's a kind of placeholder floating in space. If you send a scout ship there, or you can also send another warship, then you'll see what this world looks like and whether it's defended, which ships are in orbit and whether it makes sense to possibly fly there. The advantage of blockades is simply that you have to spend very few resources on them, and if a scout ever gets lost somewhere, meaning gets shot down, then it's a painful loss for those who are inside and their families, but for us it's actually completely irrelevant. We can zoom back in with Q, with E, there we are. And when we've clicked on the planet with the left mouse button like this, then there is, I'll move myself out of the way, at the bottom of the screen an overview of all the actions you can perform around this planet. You can see 3 resources at the top of the screen. These are the 3 main resources in the game. These are credits, metals and crystals. These are the basic resources that can be used to build anything that isn't especially technologically advanced or particularly powerful. Next to it is a number that shows how much of that resource is produced per second for you. At the moment we only have one place where production happens, namely this planet Ganymede, otherwise the other sources would also be listed there. After you have clicked on Ganymede, you will see at the bottom right the option to build certain buildings directly on the planet's surface. On such a planet, you can always build commerce buildings, meaning buildings that generate additional credits every second. Each additional upgrade level of such a building is more expensive than the previous one, but it also produces more output. You can also queue up several things in a row. On the left, there's a construction list, which will then be processed automatically in that order. If you right-click, something will be removed, and if you use the left mouse button, you can also modify the order in which things are built. But you don't just have the option to build on the planet itself, you can also build in orbit. To do that, click on the Build Orbital Structures display at the bottom right. This is then divided into two sections. On the left, civilian structures, which, by the way, also include the shipyards that produce military ships, and on the right, military orbital structures. These are, for example, various gun turrets or defense platforms that you can build to protect your planet or the ships in orbit from approaching enemies. Certain military research buildings are also possible if an orbital structure can't be built at the moment. That's not always the case, but usually it has one of two possible reasons. Either you're simply lacking the resources for it, because the moment you add something to the build queue, all the required resources are immediately deducted from the top. And if the build queue is too long, it might be that you still have a lot of resources in reserve, but you just can't add any more items to the build queue. Add simply because the other resources are already reserved. The second reason why you might not be able to build an orbital structure is simply that you don't have enough slots around your celestial body. In this example, the display on the left shows civil, 3 out of 5, meaning you can build 5 civil orbital structures and have occupied 3 slots. The same goes for military on the right side, which also has a limit. The display shows how many you've built so far. You can increase the number of these slots. On the planet's surface itself down here, there's the logistics display. There you can build a logistics building and later upgrade it in different stages. That increases the number of these civilian orbital slots, and to the right of it, defense does the same for the military orbital structures. Both of these buildings also have the advantage of increasing the maximum health points of a celestial body. Sounds very technical, but in practice it just means that if there are enemies in space bombarding you, it will take longer before you're wiped out. Another reason why it might not work could be that you don't have the necessary research yet. If a test tube icon lights up near an orbital structure, you know you first need to unlock something in the 2 research trees. We'll take a look at that later. How do you place a structure? You click on it, then you can either place it manually, just click a second time near the celestial body. That's my recommendation. You hold down the control key, then the program decides on its own where a smart placement could be. And if you do this every time you place an orbital structure, even with the military ones, then the military ones will very likely end up right next to the civilian ones, all clumped together side by side. And then you protect and defend each other. If you later think I would have preferred to have them somewhere else, you don't have to remove, delete, or destroy them. There's a special movement command you can use. At the bottom right, there are the advanced planet actions, and there you have, for example, the option to change orbit structures. That takes a little moment, a few seconds in the game, during which they are deactivated while they're moving, but that's not a significant disadvantage. Large parts of the game, and your success as a player will mainly depend on producing more and more resources as quickly as possible. As a beginner in the game, you probably don't have a sense yet of how you should produce the resources in relation to each other. A very simple rule of thumb for the 3 resources at the top, maybe in a ratio of 3 to 1 to 1 or 4 to 1 to 1. You usually can't go wrong with that. If you notice during the game that you're still not managing, it drops sharply somewhere, always hitting 0. That's the bottleneck. You can always build something there later. Then let's take a look at more of the galaxy now. How can we explore the galaxy with these ships here? With scout corvettes? You have at least one with you at the start of the game. They might not be suitable for conquering the whole galaxy, but they're actually pretty cool and good, so that you reveal as much of the map as quickly as possible, because just like in any other 4X game, that's super important here too. Map knowledge, so you know where to move later and colonize new planets or find loot or exploit asteroids or whatever else. By default, most ships here in Sins of a Solar Empire 2 have their important special abilities set to autocast. Set. That means if a ship, like in this case here, you click on the Prova Recon Corvette, you can see up here, down here it says Recon, and below that it says right-click to disable autocast. In most cases, it actually makes sense to trust the AI. It handles it well, and letting it use these special abilities is smart, especially for new players. Otherwise, or on large maps where there's a lot to manage, you tend to forget to use these abilities. Then scouts end up getting stuck somewhere. Battleships don't use their special units, their special abilities, and so on. And then, for every celestial body he owns, whether it's a planet or an asteroid, there are always automatically generated workers, as you would call them in Civilization. So, civilian units, which are also unarmed and completely helpless, are responsible for building structures in space on site. In other words, these orbital structures. If you're ever traveling around one of your planets and you're looking for a specific ship but can't find it, there's always, whenever you're in orbit, an indicator at the top right of the screen showing where you are around a celestial body. If you right-click up there on the little ship you're looking for, it will immediately be highlighted for you, and double-clicking will let you jump to it. And these little ships are there to build these things, and if they get destroyed at some point, they'll eventually respawn on their own. That means there's no micromanagement with workers like in Civilization, for example. And then, of course, you also need warships, so you can show your opponents who the real master of the universe is, namely you, of course. And that's where every game starts with a bang. Right at the beginning, you get to choose a massive, powerful warship for free. Unbelievable. Here's how it works. If you don't click on the planet, you still have the option to build ships down here in the bottom right corner. I'll also show you another way to build using fleets soon. And then everything is sorted into 4 categories. Corvettes, which are the small light ones, the somewhat heavier ships, the frigates, the cruisers, and then the capital ships, which are at the very end of the research trees. A Titan ship that you can build. Some of these ships can actually only be built by you, meaning only your faction. This is especially true for the capital ships, the ones that keep flashing yellow at us, saying, "Please click on me." When you hover over them with the mouse, you'll see some numerical values that won't mean much to you at first, and 4 special abilities. Sometimes they're passive, but often they're active abilities where, as just explained, you should have the standard autocast enabled, so you don't always have to check. They'll use it when it's appropriate or not, which is always helpful. At the very bottom of the tooltip, you'll see 1, 2, or 3 lines in blue, and there it briefly describes what type of ship it is. My tip for the first game is to hang in there and watch. After a big heavy chunk where you're able to immediately crush your enemies, and maybe on an asteroid, a group of harmless guards who basically haven't done anything to you, just blasting them out of space so you can take their belongings. In other words, if it says here that it's a heavily armed and armored warship, then you can't really go wrong with that. Because at the beginning you don't have enough ships that you could boost with a big support ship. Some of these things, if you click on this here, just one click right here, it's free, and then it goes into the build queue for free. If you release the spacebar and go into the game speed, then the little ship is there immediately. You can also have it displayed at the top right away. Here it is at the front, and there our first capital ship glides out of its shipyard. A proud sight, an intimidating sight for our enemies later. At the bottom right it lights up yellow. Why only the capital ships and the really big Titan ships? They have the ability to earn experience points, and thus actually activate or improve the special abilities you saw in the selection during construction. That means with this ship, here we start with the first solo experience level, the second line from the top in the tooltip. There it says experience 0 out of 200 of the base. The basic level is free. We can click on one of the plus signs to unlock the special ability below it. Now it's there. Just a reminder, it's always set to auto-trigger by default. And when you collect experience levels later, you can either upgrade an existing ability or unlock a new one, another one. The value that's relevant for performing these special abilities is antimatter. It's shown here in the middle, 225 out of 225, that's what it says. When such an ability is triggered, it costs a one-time antimatter that you have on board. Here 75, which means the supply of 225 that you have will be reduced at first. The ship automatically generates new antimatter over time. You don't even have to be within your own empire's borders for this, it works all by itself. It's different for other values. At the top you see durability, then shield points, armor points, and hull points. If the last three values are reduced, you need to be within your own empire's borders for them to recover. That means ships heal automatically, even when they're fighting, even when they're moving, but it has to be within your own cultural borders. The value above, the robustness, that's a virtual value. It's just supposed to give you a rough idea at a glance of how powerful this ship is compared to other ships. When you're attacked, usually the shield points are reduced first. If they're down to 0, then the armor points go down. If those reach 0, then the hull points. And after that you're out of luck. There are also special weapons or special abilities that might bypass the shield points or are particularly effective against one of these layers. First, just remember, more toughness is better. Ensure the capital ship's hull points never reach 0, because that's pretty bad. What I really appreciate about this game is the interface, because the developers have included a wealth of really smart convenience features. Once you get to know them, and maybe you'll get to know them by watching this crash course, the operation of the game becomes much easier without the game itself becoming too easy. So the game is definitely complex, but the controls aren't complicated, and that's something you have to pull off first, and I think that's really well done from a technical standpoint. Let me show you, using ships and fleets as an example. In the top left there are favorites where you can group planets or fleets together. You start by default with an empty alpha fleet. If I take this ship here and then park it up here with a right click, the ship is automatically in this fleet. If I select several ships with a box and right click here, the ship joins this fleet. If I want to form a new fleet, I have two options. I go over to form a new fleet, and then there's the beta fleet. And because I just activated the battleship, it's automatically in a new group, and the old one becomes empty. What you don't have in this game is that ships can belong to multiple groups. That's a feature that some multiplayer fans, for example, find pretty cool, but for beginners or casual players, it's usually more of a potential source of mistakes. Here each ship is only in one fleet. And wow, this is what an advanced game looks like. We are the reds and oranges, they are the blues and yellows, they are fewer and we are more. They've really taken a beating, or rather a hit to their astronaut helmet. And now I can show you this special feature from Sins of a Solar Empire 2 up in the top right corner. Here it is, Future Planetary Orbits. You click on it and see what will happen on the map in the next minute. Click again to go back, and you can see on this map, in the middle, the planets shift and their orbits, their connections also shift. If these get too long, they break apart. New ones can form with every map you choose. At the start of the game, the text roughly describes whether such effects occur more in the middle or at the edges, and that way you can look for certain strategic challenges. For building ships, you first have the boring standard options. That means you either click on a planet or you click on a shipyard, go to Build Ships at the bottom right, choose what you want, and order it. Through the advanced ship actions, you can also set a rally point, then, after they're finished, all ships will fly exactly there. If you don't set a rally point, you'll wonder where you wanted your ships after building them. Much smarter. Instead, you build through fleets, you click on the fleet and then go to shipbuilding at the bottom right. Ships you can build are not grayed out. And then you just click on what you want. The program decides by itself where the ship will be built and also makes sure that it joins your fleet. The program then looks at things like, for example, how quickly the ship can be built on site. If there are several shipyards, it goes faster. How far away is this shipyard usually? In my experience, the smartest alternative is always chosen. And then the ships automatically fly exactly to where you are and fight. What kinds of celestial bodies or worlds can you find on a map? First, the planets you already know are usually the best loot and offer the most options. Then there are asteroids, where you can find not only but especially metals and crystals, and sometimes there are also wrecks. That means there are some crashed ships lying around, and there used to be such a ship at this dead asteroid. We looted it. No matter which world you visit, there are always defenders. These are either the major factions, or if you haven't expanded to their borders yet, they're neutral defenders. Grey ships, they're usually not very strong, but they can be strong. You can, but you always send out the reconnaissance ships first, the scouts, to check everything out. And if you click on a world that's still unknown to you with the left mouse button, like up here for example, you'll see information about it. And you can see what ships were there the last time a scout was in orbit, which faction they belonged to, and roughly how strong they were. And if you move your mouse over these borders around it, you'll get some more information about the fleets. That way you can get a pretty good idea. You just saw the term supply points as well. That means you can only build a maximum number of ships at any given time. Large ships require a lot of supply points, while smaller ships need fewer. At the top, right here at the military command, you can see how many supply points you currently have available. In this case, it's 400. How many are you using? Research can raise the limit. Speaking of research, let's take a look at it now. You can access research at the top left, either through civilian or military research. Both run in parallel in separate trees. For example, military research looks like this. Usually you research from left to right. There are 3 areas here: mobilization, experimental design, armament, and sometimes a 4th area like here. Which areas these are and what the technologies are called always changes depending on the faction you're playing. From the beginning, you can immediately research everything that's in the first column. To be able to research things from the second column, you first have to unlock the requirements at the very top level. So that's a particularly difficult overarching research. That's a particularly advanced and expensive level 3 research. Then I would unlock and complete it now, and after that I could also put it into level 3 research. Normally you just need a certain amount of resources to complete one of the smaller researches. The research duration is shown next to it, so you can see how long it will take to finish. However, to complete one of the major levels at the top, you need a certain number of research points, like here, military research points or civil research points. You usually get those either through buildings that you construct on a planet. That means if we click on one of our core worlds, you'll see the research rate at the bottom right. These are special buildings that only affect how quickly you research, not how many research points you get. But with the orbital structures, you can place either civilian or military research stations on site. That's all. There's also the option to unlock so-called planetary items. The spaceships also have the option to be equipped with extra items. You have to craft those yourself. You can craft them once you've researched the recipe, and the recipes can be found in the research menu. For example, Plant Landau has these 2 items. Civil University once awarded us 2 civil research points. And also the really big ships. You can further equip those with items that improve their stats. 3 more exciting game features can be found at the top of the screen. Here are the exotic resources, trade and markets. Then I click on this. So, in addition to the normal resources like credits, metals and crystals for building capital ships, and sometimes for building certain cool items, you also need extra resources. There are these 5 like tauronite, endurium and so on, and you can find them in different ways. The classic way is, you click on one of your planets and go to research in the bottom left. That means they'll start digging and researching here. Then, with some probability, it will show which resource you'll definitely get and which ones you might get. And you can do this research multiple times in a row, and it gets a little bit more expensive each time. These strategic resources are consumed once you have used them. After that, they are deducted from above and are basically tied up. For example, the capital ship you've built. If you blow up an enemy capital ship and it lies completely destroyed in front of you, you can keep shooting at it until it releases the strategic resources that the enemy used to build it for you. and then they also end up in your resource vault. Then up here, there's the option to trade. That sounds a bit more spectacular than it actually is. That means you can unlock export points over time, usually through technologies. And when you assign them to one of these three areas, metals, crystals, or goods, it generates a small extra production of these resources per second. This is more interesting. These are the markets. Once you've unlocked them through technology, you can exchange credits at predetermined exchange rates. You can buy or sell metals, of course, at more favorable or less favorable rates, and sometimes you can even buy exotic resources, but not always. Another game feature is minor factions. Besides the powerful factions you compete with for victory, there are also these. Civilization players would say these are city-states, so these small neutral realms. You can find them up here on the left with the minor factions. If you click on it, it shows you which ones are in this game on this map and the ones you've already discovered. And here you can spend so-called influence points. Influence points always show two values: the amount you've reached and the maximum you can collect. Before generating even more influence simply doesn't result in getting one more point. You can spend the influence points on different levels. For example, here is level 1, we've already unlocked this level. To unlock this level here, we would have to spend 1 influence point, then we would have 0. After that, once we have enough again, we could get a bonus for ourselves here. That means the top row requires an investment to unlock the bottom row each time. The further to the right you go, the more influence points you need to spend, and the more valuable the reward becomes. These can be military or civilian rewards. In general, in the game, if you don't have a game feature yet, or you're wondering, for example, how can I improve the production of crystals? Go to the research trees, use the top search bar, and type in crystals, influence, or what you need. Then you'll see the technologies on the right side that are helpful for that. To colonize a system, you first have to clear out its defenders, whether they're just neutrals or others. Here, 2 of our fleets arrive at an enemy system. Let's take a closer look, and the battle will start automatically in a moment. First, we need to eliminate all enemy ships, then colonize the planet, asteroid, or whatever it is. This happens by bombarding the celestial body first. That can be done by capital ships, for example, or by special bomber ships that he builds. They just have this ability. Then the celestial body loses hit points. Afterwards, you need a colony ship, which you bring next to it, and it will automatically colonize the planet. After a few seconds, it's done. However, you can also equip or upgrade some of your capital ships, or assign certain planetary items to them, so that they can do it for you as well. Your ships will battle automatically. You just need to remember, for example, to activate promotions on the capital ships, because otherwise it won't work. But the ships actually fight the battles on their own. You can also keep producing ships here in the way I showed you. You just always have to make sure that the supply point limit is not exceeded. You can't exceed that or you won't be able to build more ships. Sometimes there are small fighters on the enemy side or on your side. You can perform special attacks or healing maneuvers. The capital ships just perform these extra skills automatically, or you can disable that and do it yourself, marking target ships for everyone or for groups. In any case, you can have a lot of fun with that. That's the crash course so far. How did you like it? The game? Is it a game to your taste? Or do you say, I don't really know? Or do you maybe want to see a Let's Play around from me first? There's a playlist below with many videos from me about this game, and I'll also stream it again and do an extra round. If you watch this later, I'll show the first video here. Below, the link in the text description leads to Games Planet, where you'll find information about the community discount code if you want to get the game at a discount through me around the release. There's also a second link to the Steam store page directly from the developer. Maybe you want to buy it there as well? Or maybe keep watching me a bit longer. In any case, I would be very interested to know in the comments if the video helped you, or if you might want to add more tips. For other people who have also watched the video and maybe find it helpful too, or whatever else, I'm really curious.